So this monstrosity is the Samsung Odyssey G9. It is a 49-inch curved display monitor, and I wasn't really in the market for one of these until I recently took a visit to our Microsoft offices in Charlotte, and they've recently renovated the 4th floor of that office. And as I was walking around in the workstations, I saw a version of this monitor, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Now, Samsung makes 3 versions of this curved display monitor. They have the CRG9, which is what we had in our offices, which is the lower end model. Then they have this G9 model, and then they have a more expensive model, the Neo G9. So I started looking and doing some research into it and decided that this one had everything that I needed, but I really couldn't pay for it. I mean, it was $1,600, and that was just way too expensive for my taste. The monitors I hadn't bought new monitors probably in almost 8 or 9 years, but $1,600 was still too much. That's more than most of my TVs. However, recently it went on sale for $11.99. And with that sale, coupled with my Microsoft discount, coupled with some rebates that Microsoft Edge Shopping got me, I paid just over $800 for this monitor, just about half price, and I could not pass up this deal. So today, I'm gonna unbox this and give you my first impressions, and also see if I can figure out how to fit it on my desk. I have a ton of stuff on my desk, as you see, and this is not going to be mounted right now. I don't have a mount for it. The mounts are pretty expensive. And so I planned on putting it on the desk. So we'll see if I can work with it that way or if I'll eventually have to buy a mount for it. All right, let's get to the unboxing. So it's been 2 months since I've got the desk set up, and I've had a real good chance to try it in a lot of different applications. And so I think I have a really good feeling of whether or not it works for all of the different uses that I have and that you might use it for. So just going over the setup really quick, I have the 49-inch monitor on a Vivo arm with my Sony a5100 mounted right above it. And then I have another 24-inch Dell monitor that's on a long Vivo pole. Now, this Vivo mount is cobbled together from all of my previous Vivo mounts, so I can get it kind of high up, but it works. It works for what it is. So that's how the desk has changed. Before I had the 3 monitors, a 27-inch in the middle and then 2 24s on either side. And now I have the one 49-inch and then the 24-inch above. So I'm gonna take you through a couple different areas. Number 1, how are the ergonomics of my new setup? Number 2, how is it for productivity usage? Number 3, how is it for gaming? Number 4, how is it for video editing, which is something I do? And then give you my overall impressions of using this new monitor. The first thing I'm going to talk about is ergonomics, and I'll have to tell you that this is not the most ergonomic setup, and it's not the entire fault of the monitor itself or the monitor arm. When I initially bought this monitor, it came with a pretty large stand that took up almost the entire desk space. I really didn't have a lot of space for my keyboard and mouse. Certainly couldn't get my mic arm to rotate out because it was so big. So I decided to go with a mount. The mount also allows me to lift it higher and lower, makes it much easier. The predominant mount at that time was one that cost around $330, but Vivo had just come out with a new mount for 49-inch monitors like this that fit this one perfectly for a little over $100. And so I got the mount, and I could raise it higher. I'm 6'2", so I'm pretty tall, and so I need my monitors pretty high. My previous setup was pretty high. But one of the things I didn't like about my previous setup is where I had to position my camera. I do a lot of video conferencing for work. I also record YouTube videos, obviously. Occasionally I do streaming. And my previous camera setup, because of how high my monitor was, it was really high, so it was looking down at an angle towards me. So I wanted to get my camera more level, which meant I had to go with a little bit lower monitor. also when mounting the second monitor, the higher I went with the 49-inch monitor, the higher I'd have to go with that one in order to see it. So I've mounted this monitor a little bit lower than I normally would. And that means my head's kind of looking down. I'm looking down a lot, especially things that are at the bottom half of the monitor. I'm really looking down. So it's not the most comfortable setup from an ergonomic standpoint. It's a trade-off because I want to have the camera in the right position. So for me, I would rate this setup a C. Now, you certainly can do a lot better. If you don't have to worry about camera position, if you don't have a second monitor that you're trying to go above, then with this Vivo arm, you can raise it up so you can get it directly eye level to make it a little bit easier. But this is the best I could do currently in this setup. So the next topic I want to discuss is productivity, and that's what I use this monitor for the majority of the time. Between Monday and Friday, this setup serves as my work PC, and then during the weekends I boot into a second hard drive and it's my gaming / video editing / personal computer. And so I'm spending most of my time using this for productivity. Now, this monitor itself has an option where you can run two DisplayPort cables into your device, so you can treat it as two separate monitors, which I do, but for the most part, I've landed on leveraging Power Toys. And in Power Toys, they have a feature called Fancy Zones, which allows you to set up the screen into different modes. And by holding the Shift key and dragging the various windows around, you can snap them to different locations on the monitor. It works kind of like Windows snapping, but it gives you more flexibility in how you create those zones. So for me, I've actually transitioned to using a larger center zone and then two smaller zones, which works pretty well, I would say, along with the second monitor. Some of the greats for productivity, obviously, if you use Excel, this thing is amazing for Excel. You can see pretty much any Excel spreadsheet from left to right without having to scroll. So from that perspective, it's great. For things like Word, Outlook, Teams, PowerPoint, I usually end up having that snapped either in the middle or to one of the side, depending on what I'm doing. It really doesn't work that well for this being so wide because it just drags the menu bar out too far. But for Excel, it's super good. Overall, I think the setup is good. I actually might switch. Instead of using Fancy Zones, I might just switch to a 2-monitor setup with a clean split down the middle and then having a third monitor and using it that way. I haven't tried that yet, but so far Power Toys is working really good. So for productivity, I would rate it a B. I did like my 3 monitors before, which was pretty good, but I don't think this is that much worse. It's not the ideal use case for a 49-inch screen, but especially if you're an Excel junkie, I would highly recommend one of these. Hey, before we get to the next section, you mind giving it a like and subscribe? Thanks. Okay, the next topic is gaming, and it's probably the main reason you buy a monitor this large and with this technology. And I can tell you that for gaming, it's absolutely fantastic. Now, I'm not a heavy PC gamer, so I'm not maybe gonna use the games that would get the most out of a monitor like this, but honestly, for any video game, and especially any modern video game, it's really good. One of the features that this monitor has is G-Sync, which is to try to match the refresh rate of the monitor with the frame rate of the video or the game that you're watching, so it kind of prevents tearing and that kind of thing. I'm sure that's a great feature. I have it turned on. I don't know if the games I'm playing would make use of that, but it might be something that is really super important to you if you have an NVIDIA graphics card. I think the thing that's amazing for me is just how much of the game's real estate you get to see. I've been playing things like Civilization, Age of Empires, or even FIFA, and each of them, it's amazing that you can see almost all of the area that you're really navigating in. I think with the other monitors I've had, you're really limited in what you can see. For instance, in FIFA, I can almost see goal to goal, right? Which makes it really fun when you're doing build-up plays that you can see your players making runs that you wouldn't have been able to see even on like a 27-inch monitor. Same with something like Civilization, just being able to see more of the map. Age of Empires, being able to see more of your city and more of the map. I think in all games that I've played, you just get more. It's like having a VR headset on, but without the motion sickness. So for gaming, it's an absolute A+. The games look fantastic. The amount that you're able to see of the games is amazing. And it's just been a real pleasure switching to this for gaming over the previous 27-inch monitor that I had before. Now, the biggest non-work application that I use this monitor for is video editing. And for video editing, I'm really enjoying it. One of the real great things about using this monitor for video editing is being able to see the length of your timeline really easy. If you've done any video editing before, as you get new video and graphics and all of those things in, the timeline extends based on the length of your video. And when you're using a single monitor, whether it's a 27-inch, 24-inch, even a 32-inch, that limits how much you can see of your timeline. And so you're generally zooming in and zooming out to various sections of your timeline, but as you do so, you're losing the broader timeline. And so with this monitor, it just allows you to see the timeline more fully. Now, one of the reasons I did this setup and actually added this monitor above was to have a clean video feed out, meaning I could take my video feed and just show it on that monitor and then use this monitor for the timeline. And that's something I saw from Mr. Alex Tech, who does a lot of videos on DaVinci Resolve, which is what I use to edit all my videos. So I've really enjoyed leveraging this monitor. It just makes it easier and more enjoyable to edit videos. So if you do a lot of heavy video editing at all, I would highly recommend one of these monitors. Just like gaming, I would give it an A+, I would give it an A+ for video editing as well. Now, what are some of the issues that I've dealt with since getting this monitor? I would say the biggest issue is how it comes out of sleep, or whatever hibernation mode it goes into. When my computer goes to sleep or shuts the monitor off and I have to log back into the PC, it sometimes wakes up, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I have to hit the power button 2-3 times. Sometimes I have to go and choose the right display. Maybe that's because I have two DisplayPort cables going into my PC, so maybe the PC doesn't really know what's going on. I really am not sure what it is. I haven't yet been able to figure it out. I've tried changing the power settings on Windows to accommodate for this. I think on my work profile it works a little better, on my personal profile not so much, so maybe I gotta figure out what the differences are between the two. So I would say this is the biggest issue I've had. Not really had any other issues other than that, so overall I say it's pretty good. Thanks again for joining me here on Stephen Helwig Talks Tech as we looked at, should you buy a 49-inch curved screen display monitor? My answer to that question, as you know, is yes. I think you should. I think there is very little that is negative about them, quite honestly, whether the application you're using it for is productivity, gaming, video editing, watching movies, whatever it happens to be. Highly recommend these, and I highly recommend the G9. I think it's a good middle-of-the-road monitor. I don't know what they're going for today. I'll maybe take a look here in a little bit, but that you can get them for a pretty reasonable price. Samsung puts up sales every now and then, and I'm sure they will be coming out with a new one soon, which means all the existing ones will go on sale. If you haven't yet, give the channel a like and a subscribe. It really helps us grow as we make new videos. Tell me in the comments what you liked about this video. If you have one of these monitors, if you're in the market for one, what your setup looks like at home, and then what you'd like me to see, what you would like to see me do another video on. All right, thanks so much. Bye.